Not be able to hear you.
There we go. Okay. Okay. All right. Can she hear it? Trunk. I can't hear us.
See.
You can also maybe give a thumbs up.
Okay.
Mae, can you hear us? Can you hear us?
Yes.
Thumbs up. You can hear us?
Yes, I'm on.
I can't hear her.
Can
Why
you not
can I
hear
not
me?
hear her?
See.
Which
Make it as loud as you can.
It's the projectors that are. So let's see here. If we do this. Hold on, it might get loud. So you want the. Oh, yeah. So either the speaker or the. Is that it right there?
They're fixing the audio on their end.
Hey, Mary.
Say hello.
Hello.
Hey, they can hear you now.
All right. How are you today?
I'm fine. How are you?
We are fantastic. Thank you so much for joining us. All right. Class.
Thank you for inviting me.
Oh, yes, ma'am. We are. Oh, our camera.
You stay with me because I'm having a little trouble with the
I
hearing.
gotcha.
So, on behalf of Westside High School, RCPT, Grunt Style, all right, we are excited to have you here joining us today. So, just tell us a little bit about yourself.
Tell them a little bit about yourself.
Oh, good morning. I'm having a little trouble hearing you. I'm not sure whether it's on your end or mine.
Let's see. Can you? Is that better?
Yes, it is.
Okay. So, just tell us a little bit about yourself and your experiences during the war.
Good morning to the students, to you, Daniel, and your students. I think you realize that I was Rosie Riveter during World War II. I built airplanes at Seattle, Washington. I built B-17s and B-29 bombers. Let me tell you, you young people, I was 17 years old when I went to work at Boeing. Can you visualize your age? I'm sure most of you are around 17, 18 years old. Can you imagine going to work in an aircraft factory at that age? But that was pretty common back there when World War II was declared. As soon as we got out of school, we all went right to work to save our country. And I think that hopefully you know a lot about World War II history. So Daniel, if you, Dan, if you know, would like to ask me questions, I'd appreciate it. I have a lot of stories to tell.
Attorney, you were gonna have to come step up. If you want to ask Mae a question, the way the camera's facing, you just need to come. The mic is here, so she's hard of hearing, so you need to stand here when you ask her a question, okay?
Here?
And the camera's right there, all right?
Oh. Hello, Miss Mae. My name is
Good
Attorney.
morning.
Speak up
wanted
just a
to-
little bit louder, okay?
I wanted to ask you, how do you feel like working in those type of conditions at a young age, especially 17? And how do you work through it, like through the pressure and the anxiety of it all? Like, how did it go for you?
Well, when we were so young and naive, it was right after the Great Depression, and we had a rough life up until that point. So going into a factory and working like that, we were used to work. We were used to hard work. We were used to nothing, So when we went into the factory and went to work, of course, now we were making money, which was really great. But the thing is, we went there to save our country. So many people have come from different states all over our country to either build ships or build airplanes. It wasn't my job or your job, it was our job. We were there to save our country. So as far as working conditions, I didn't find it uncomfortable at all. In fact, I loved what I learned how to do. I learned how to rivet. First we were buckers, and then we became riveters after we got good at it. So I really enjoyed what I did at Boeing.
Did you ever feel like you were too young for it?
Not really. I was a tomboy, so I was used to it was easy for me to climb in and out of the airplanes, things like that. There was others that were a little more timid, but as time went on, we all became good riveters, good workers.
That's all my questions. Thank you so much, Miss Mae.
Yes.
Anybody else want to ask her? She's here for you guys. If you want to ask a question, raise your hand and come up over here. Speak over to the mic and ask. Like I said, this is a once in a lifetime opportunity to be come on. Like our World War II veteran, she is just as highly regarded and honored, and it is a privilege to be able to talk to her and hear her story. like, ask her question. She's here for you guys. All right, go ahead.
My name is Ariel Dorsey. I wanted to ask, did you have a specific person go into war in your family?
And no, my sister and I and my girlfriend, oh, don't forget, when World War II was declared, we lived in a small town, and the minute that the men were able, they all enlisted. And that took the heart right out of our small towns. So naturally, as the time went on, us girls started to leave too. And my sister and I and my girlfriend decided to go just for the summer. We thought it would be a lark. We thought that would be fun. But the way it turned out, we loved it and we all stayed. We all became Rosies throughout the whole war.
That's all my questions.
What other, come.
Good morning.
Good morning.
I have a question. How was it transitioning from studying school to studying war?
That's a hard question to ask because I was a fairly decent student, but it's like two different worlds we're living in now. But we didn't have any experience of any type of work like that. I mean, anything that we might have done, when we were young was probably babysit, things like that. So going into a factory, you had to learn, first of all, you had to learn how to rivet, and you had to learn how to buck, and then learn how to rivet. You had to learn how to use tools like drills, different types of equipment. But they taught you that, and after a while, women became very good at it. Women were very agile. Like sometimes we were better riveters than the men. So it wasn't a matter whether it was male or female. And like I said, but the men got paid more. That was one thing. It's still stuck in my craw that the men got paid more, even though we were still doing the same thing.
Right.
So girls, I'm out there fighting for women's rights every day that I can, because they still haven't changed that completely.
Right.
President Obama, at one of his State of the Union speeches, he said we're 90% there. And I wrote to him and I said, no, we're not. I said, it took us 70 years to get 90%. Is it going to take us another 70 to get the other 10%?
Right.
And he wrote the nicest letter, responded so nice. And I thought that was nice. So if you've got something, if you want to do something, go for it. Don't stop just because you're the president of the United States.
Absolutely.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
My question is, did you ever have any doubts or second thoughts when joining the workforce?
Did I have second thoughts about what I was doing? Is that what you're asking me?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, no, never. I loved what I did. I think, well, like I told you, I was a tomboy, and I like the idea of learning and doing different things in your life. Now, it makes you very capable as you age, as you grow older, you get a home. You'll find the women that did the work during the war are much more capable. I can do almost anything around the house. I still cut my grass even at 96 years old. So I said, we've learned to be strong. We've learned to be independent. I think that's nice. And I love speaking to you young people because the world is open for you right now. And listen to Daniel, because Dan will tell you things that he's planting these seeds. Think about what he's saying to you. One little thing might stick and you'll go on from there and it'll be your career for the rest of your life. When I started to fight for Rosie the Riveter's recognition, that was more than 40 years ago. I had no idea where I was going with it, but I knew that the women weren't recognized for what we did during World War II. So I just started to write. I wrote to anybody and everybody who would listen to me. And it took me almost 40 years, but I was very instrumental in getting our National Rosie Riveter Day, our Women's History Month, and now our Congressional Gold Medal. And I'm so proud of that. So if you've got a dream, don't stop, especially you girls. I especially like to tell you about programs you can go into, like learning to be an engineer, things like that. Look at what our astronauts are doing now. They're begging for more women. Go into studying like engineering, things like that. Don't be afraid to tackle it. It's not a man's world anymore. You can do it too.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Thank you.
Well,
Hello.
Just make sure you speak loud and right there to the microphone.
How was it like transitioning from the war into post-war or like after it?
It was very difficult. When the war was over, we came home to know all the country. My husband worked at Westinghouse before the war. And so when the war was over, all these manufacturers, General Electric, General Motors, Westinghouse, they were all retooling. Now they're going from military equipment back to regular like radios, things that we couldn't get during the war, furniture, everything. And after the war, there were so many unions, so many strikes, so many union problems. The unions were even being infiltrated by communism at the time. So with the strikes and all, we had, now we're home, we're all raising families. These are our baby boomers. And it was very difficult because we didn't have the income like we had before. So really the next 5 years after the war were hard. When the Korean War came along, I went to work as a Rosie during the Korean War too for a while. And it wasn't because I was raising the flag or flying the flag, it was simply a matter of need. We needed the money. So that's why I worked during the Korean War. But did you have any other questions? Did I answer your question?
No, that was it. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Omar, make it good. Make sure you speak closer to the mic, okay?
Good morning.
Good morning.
How's your day going currently?
How's your day?
Mike, today,
How's your day going
You're
currently?
being respectful.
Crazy.
How's your day going today?
how's my day going? It's pretty wet, I'll tell you. We're getting a lot of rain instead of snow, thank God. But let me tell you a little story about not too long ago, I've traveled. I've just been having so much fun with traveling. I just came home from Pearl Harbor for celebrating the 80th anniversary of a bombing of Pearl Harbor. But one of the things I did just before I went to Pearl Harbor was they asked me to speak at the Philadelphia Police affair one night. And I'm great on equality. I just think the women, men of color, all of us, we should be equal. I had the opportunity to speak about Diane Outlaw. She's the commissioner of police of Philadelphia, one of the largest cities in our country. Now, in our day, we never imagined a woman being a police officer, and to imagine that she's now the commissioner of one of the biggest cities in the country. And not only that, she's a lady of color. Now, if you can't beat that, I'm just so overwhelmed with that, because if that's not the equality, coming into play, I love that. And that's what I'm for, equality. They ask me if I'm a liberal, and I say no, I'm for equal rights. And I think that's so important for all of us.
Okay.
Did I answer your question?
He's got one more.
Yeah, I have another. So I've been asking this a lot, and you can ask all the people I just met today. Great people. I've been asking this a lot. So how was it? How was your experience, and how was it doing? How was it? Basically, how was it? Like your experience between the war and serving and all that. How was your experience? Like I heard a lot of people have different experiences. I heard what it was.
Were you looking for what a day in the life of Rosie was, or are you looking for an overall experience?
Overall experience, because how different people have different experience. I've talked to 3 people. I gotta talk to you. You look nice.
What did you?
What your overall experience as a Rosie was?
Oh, it was great. I was young and naive. I was a teenager, and I loved it because I would work all day and dance half the night. I said, we just, then we sleep on the weekend, we'd sleep all weekend. But not only with the war was being on, we were having a good time. But not once did we ever give up on our duty to our country and our job. But we also were enjoying our lives. When you're teenagers, you still have a lot of energy and you want to do things and see things and go places. And that's what I did. I really enjoyed it. And I met this cute sailor on the dance floor in 1944 in Seattle. And we just became good friends. We danced our way through a lot of a lifetime. But in 1945, we decided to get married. It was President Roosevelt had just died, and he was transferred. These are the things that bring up the memories of particular things. But no, we had a very good life, and we just enjoyed our life. And it was nice. Did I answer your question? I'm not sure that I answered everything for you.
Yes, ma'am, you did.
May I have a quick question. You have a story you told me about on the phone about meeting a general?
General Hap Arnold?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, it was nice. General Hap Arnold, he was no, we had no Air Force at that time. It was Army Air. So General Hap Arnold came to the plant one day and he stopped and talked to us, group of us. He shook our hand and he talked to us. And when he left, we were just so proud. He made us feel so proud of what we were doing. One of the stories I love to tell is when Hitler had said he wouldn't have any trouble defeating America because American women couldn't produce. He said we were soft and spoiled. He said we spent too much time on cosmetics, on nylon stockings, not nylon stockings, frivolous things. I think we showed Hitler what American women were made of. You know, they didn't know how capable American women were. Isn't that amazing how they had no idea how capable American women were? We sure showed them, didn't we, ladies? Yeah.
All right, come on. Oh, turn, hold on. Let him come up.
Hello.
Hello.
Did you ever feel overwhelmed, especially at such a young age?
Overwhelmed with what?
Just going
Don't
into
get overwhelmed.
No, not really. I think you know, I've met some wonderful people with my travels, but you know, I've met the general of the Air Force, the secretaries of the Air Force, people like that. I'm never overwhelmed with them because they're just people like us. They're just down there people who worked hard to achieve what they wanted in their life. This is what I'm saying to you right now. Don't let anything stop you. Men, women, I especially like to speak to young girls because girls find it harder to get their foot in the door, whereas a man, let me give you an example of that. I worked with an engineer for years, and he used to ask me to set up programs for the engineering department. And one program, we had 2 men and 1 woman, and the girl had signed off. She was at the top of her class, and she told a story that the program, every question they asked the men, they didn't ask the girl or the woman. And here she was just as qualified or more qualified as the men were. But this is the thing that we have to change. And girls, you know, I love the thought of you going into engineering, but if that's not your field, don't worry about it. But I was on a program with the CEO of Boeing, our senator and our congressman, and we spoke to, it was 8 schools with 100 students, and it was engineering week. And of course, I talked about astronauts. I love the space program. And you got to start with engineering, but look, the field is wide open for things for you women. That's what I like for you women. I know you boys, you have a much better opportunity to get your foot in the door, but girls, whatever you want to do, go for it. Don't let anybody stop you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Did I answer your question?
Yes, thank you.
I get carried away.
May, some of our jumpers and some of our jumpers want to sit there and be able to talk to you and ask you a few questions. So I'm going to open up to some members of our team. Val?
Mae, my name is Val Markham. I just want to thank you for paving the way. I actually went to West Point and was a leader in the Army for 29 years. So I appreciate all that you did to get me to where I was. So my question is, did you ever get to fly in the planes that you built?
Oh, certainly. It only took me 70 years to get my first ride. But the Air Force has also given me a ride in their KC-135, their refueling plane. They've given me a ride in that. And you know, I've just had the most wonderful opportunity since I started speaking. You know, when I started this, I had no clue where I was going with it. The only thing I wanted to do was make our country realize what the women did for our country, because the men came home to parades and flying flags, and Rosie came home with a pink slip. They never recognized what we did. And so I just got on my bandwagon and just started writing. And the thing in my favor wasn't my know-how so much as my persistence. So girls, remember that persistence. I'm sorry, please tell me the rest of your story because I've traveled with some West Point retirees or alumni.
Nice, nice. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Hi, Miss May. My name is Bill Markham. You just spoke to my bride.
And thank you.
Yeah, I wanted to say thank you for your service. The liberties that we have today are because of someone like you, and thank you. The question I have, what were your normal work hours and how much did you make an hour?
No, when we worked regular hours, if they got behind in production or something, so once in a while we would work on a weekend or Saturday. I remember working Thanksgiving Day, which wasn't heard of at that time. But no, we worked, we were dedicated. We did what our country needed. And I think that that was so important. I believe that I started at 92 cents an hour. You know, that was a lot of money at that time.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you very much, ma'am. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Anybody else? Okay, yeah, absolutely.
Good morning. My name is Joseph, 6 years Army. I just had a question essentially that was going to be about. Yo, I had it and I just lost it.
During the crowd.
Essentially, when you were going into that position, being so young, like how did you receive your training and how long did it take for you to?
Well, they would take us downtown in Seattle. We had to go downtown for the training. The Boeing plant was at the south end of Seattle, but they give us 2 weeks of training. They would put a small sheet of sheet metal in the vise, and they teach us how to drill holes and how to. Of course, we were buckers at the beginning, but how to rivet. I don't know whether you're familiar with riveting or bucking, but you are buckered first. The riveter has the rivet gun, and you're on the other side of that sheet metal, and you have to hold that bucking bar up against that rivet, and that's what seals it. She shoots that rivet in there, and you seal it with the bucking bar. So often I had to climb in and out. I was a bucker at the beginning, and I had to have to weave in and out of the wing. There was like the ribs in the wing to be a bucker. And you had to be young and naive and not claustrophobic to do that. When I look at a B-17 now and think about it, I think, how did I ever get in there? But I was young and naive.
Thank you so
That
much.
was our training, 2 weeks training, and they took us right into the factory from then on.
Wow. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
So May, when you were working in the factory, yeah, I mean, I'm sure accidents happen. You know, what was the turnover rate for Rosie's in the factory were there ones that got burned out? Like they worked like 2 weeks and I can't handle this. And they try to maneuver them to something else. Like they're here 1 minute, gone the next. I mean, how frequent was that turnover?
Well, I never seen any accidents. I worked in the wing section and the nacelle, that's where the engine goes. And we were on a platform because the wings were set up at an angle where we could climb in them. But I never seen any accidents. I heard there were some, but I had never experienced any or seen any. One time through the time of working, I worked with a man. It was a man riveter he was from Iowa. We were from every state in the Union. We came from everywhere to save our country. And he was just so good. He made me a much better riveter than I would have without him. But at one stage, they asked us to go out on the airfield and hang around on the airfield the engineers were modifying the planes that the president flew in. So we got to go out there for that. But that became very boring because we have to wait for the engineers to modify or figure out what part they wanted to use. And then we had to manufacture it. Then it only took us a few minutes to install it. So we spent a lot of waiting time out there. I didn't like that part of it. But when I come back into the shop, I started working on the B-29s. And I often wondered if I had put rivets in the Enola Gay. And I wrote to the historian and I asked him and he said it was possible. But I found out many years later that it was made in Nebraska, I think Wichita or somewhere. And there went my 15 minutes of fame. I thought I had rivets in the Enola Gay.
So I've heard this from various historians. I've heard this from various individuals over the years that sometimes Rosie's would sign their names inside the aircraft, you know, with parts they were working on, just to sign that our inspirational message to the GIs when they got. Did you ever witness that, or did you ever write a message? And if so, what was it?
Not on the inside of the plane, but I did on the outside. Well, you know, when we built our 5,000 B-17, that was in May of 1944. That was 5,000 since Pearl Harbor. They all let us paint our name on the plane. It was called the 5 Gram. And if you'll see news, different pictures of B-17, you'll see that plane. And we were so proud of that. It made 67 tours over Europe with the writing on it. They thought the engineers wouldn't accept it that way because everything was camouflaged at the time. But they accepted it, and when it came back, they used it for war bond tours. I mean, I'm sure a lot of you don't know this part of the history, but they still had to sell war bonds to keep, for finance our wars. And after there was no more use for it, they tried to get it to use it as a monument or memorial, but they couldn't get enough food. So the historian from Boeing showed me a picture. It was scrapped in Kingston Air Force Base. And here's our names were still on it. You could see them dismantling it, but our names were still on it. And I take pride in that.
That is absolutely fabulous. Nice. So before I do have one very important question. You and I have been going back and forth with this for a while. I'm hoping you won't turn me down in front of a group full of people. Bill Markham is president of Rock Canopy Parachute Team USA. We at RCPT USA and our sponsors with Grunt Style, Firehouse Subs, and everyone else, we are inviting you to come down and have Rosie jump with us.
Thank you. That was so nice.
You want to get your message out there? What bigger way than for you to jump as Rosie with us?
Oh, that's a nice invite. Thank you. You asked if I could still rivet. When I went to Normandy, I was invited to Normandy. And one of the reenactor groups, unknown to me, they had set it up to see if I could still rivet. And it was so funny because 70 some years and I could still do it. I felt like I was just as good as I was 70 years ago. And thank you so much for this nice interview. I'm glad to speak to all of you and girls. Don't let anything stop you. Remember, get your foot in the door and go. I mean, it's just so important. And don't forget, we learn from our mistakes. So don't let a mistake stop you.
Was that a yes?
He's asking you if you want to go down.
What's that?
He's asking you if you want to go down and parachute.
Are you crazy? That's so funny. Maybe 20 or 30 years ago, I'd have loved it. I'm a daredevil. But at this age, you're dealing with almost 96-year-old woman.
We would be honored anytime for you to come down and speak to our team and our veterans, and to have you as an honor guest at any of our events. So that invitation, without jumping, is formally extended to you. We would absolutely be honored and love to have you down there. So
that's so nice for you to invite me. I've been invited to Tampa for Pearl Harbor again this year on December 3rd. Tampa's invited me down there. I just think it's so nice. I've had such beautiful invites through all of this. I don't consider myself a speaker. I just tell what little I know or what I do know about the World War, and I love to promote you girls. But love to promote. We've opened doors for you women, but we handed you the ball, and what you're doing with it is absolutely amazing. I love what you're doing. I mean, there's just no end to what you can do. And so don't let anything stop you. That's so important. Don't forget, girls, it's not a man's world anymore.
Yeah. Does anyone have any? We have lunch coming in a little bit. Is there any last minute questions that we have for Mae? All right, go ahead. You're next, okay? Go ahead, attorney.
I'm sorry, Ms. Mae. My last questions is this: do you have any regrets? Did you lose anything like from the war, like someone that you love or something? And was it a struggle to go through all these emotions and at the end to not really get recognized, but have to work to get that recognition?
No, I'm a happy person. I'm also one that perseveres. I just don't quit. If I've got something that I feel is worthwhile fighting for, I do. And we're just an average family. My children were born right after the war. We worked hard to educate them. This is one thing, we were able to pay their way through education. Of course, they're retired now, but they both had their master's degree. And if I was ever on a bandstand, I would be to fight for cheaper education for our people. I think it's a disgrace the way they charge our young people for college degrees. Who wants to come out of college owing $100,000? I mean, it's just not right. I think that something's got to be done about that, because the younger generation, you're all so smart. And so most of you are going to college, and I think that's so important. Your college degree is going to be equal to what our high school was back in our day. And I just hope that you, I don't think, I'm a happy person. I met a man that I really liked, and I sort of, I lost him now. He was lived to be 93, but we were married almost 70 years. And so I've had a very good life. Not material. I'm not talking about material thing. I'm talking about happiness. Healthy and healthy. What more can you ask for?
Absolutely.
Thank you, Ms. Mae.
Hey, we thank you for your time. I can't tell you what an honor it has been to have you come in and talk to our group and speak with our veterans and our students. I got one last student that wants to ask you a question. Okay, go ahead.
I love our veterans. I speak a lot. I was on the honor flights with them, and I speak a lot to our veterans. I love our veterans. I don't mean to be putting them down because I'm promoting women. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
What was the atmosphere like in your workplace? What was the atmosphere like in your workplace?
What was the atmosphere like? Like I said, I've always been such a happy person. I think that most people, we liked what we did. I don't think there was any conflict, and there was no prejudice, and we worked together well. It wasn't my job or your job, it was our job. We were there to save our country, and it was so important. It was a time where we honored our parents, we honored our flag, we honored our country. I mean, it was so important to all of us, the way we felt. So really, that's the only way I know how to answer that question.
May I also, you've talked to my wife, Kimberly, already, so I want to, she is the embodiment of your spirit here today to represent the Rosies in the factory, and I cannot thank you enough for your dedication and service and to ensure that the arsenal of democracy was built and deployed for our forces overseas. So thank you for your service, and I appreciate, I am beyond elated that you agreed to zoom in and talk to the kids today. And I will give you many more platforms to speak, absolutely. And I hope that you will take us up on our invitation to come down to beautiful Putnam County in Palatka, Florida, and speak at one of our events. We'd be honored to have you as one of our honored guests. So without jumping, I'm gonna put it out there. Okay, so maybe. So maybe. We thank you for that. Are there any before we let you go? Are there any parting words that you want to leave with my students?
Any parting words you want to leave with the students?
What's that?
Any parting words you want to leave with the students?
No, I'm sorry. Every once in a while I have to ask Courtney. This is my great-granddaughter, who sets this up for me. I'm hard of hearing, so every once in a while I have to ask what you've said. But as far as parting words, no, I just think of our young people of this generation is absolutely great. I mean, they've got a hard struggle ahead of them with the way our country is right now. But don't forget, you're the generation that's going to change this. So please do your best. People complain about our country. They should try to fix it instead of tear it down. And this is going to be your job. It's not going to be an easy one. I'll tell you, it's not going to be easy at all. But remember, this is still a good country, and it's worth fixing. So do it.
On behalf of Westside High School, Round Camp Parish Team USA, Grunt Style, and Firehouse Subs, we wanted to thank you for zooming in and joining us today. And we look forward to having more future conversations with you. So you have an absolute amazing rest of your day.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. She's going to.
No.
Is it over?
No.